You wake up at 7 a.m. to the sound of your alarm blaring. Ugh, time to get ready for school. Even though I hate school, nobody gets me here. I'm just too different for them. You tie your brunette hair up into a messy bun, smudge some mascara onto your eyelashes, and grab your favorite flannel off the floor before heading downstairs for breakfast. Your mother greets you at the bottom of the staircase and says, "Good morning, YN. You aren't going to class today." "I'm not?" you ask, perplexed, your bright blue orbs growing wide. "No, I'm late on rent, so I sold you to pay our debts. Come meet your new owners." You look past her and see a group of 5 men. Then you reach into your flannel pocket for your glasses to get a clearer picture. Wait, could it be? Is that One Direction? "Hello," Harry says. "We have purchased you." Okay, that's enough of that. I'm done. The video just started and it's already over. Goodbye. If you recognize what I'm referencing here, you are entitled to financial compensation. Seriously. The 2010s were booming for boy bands like One Direction and their growing fan base, a lot of whom were young girls at the time. Not me though. I truly am different and not like other girls. Just kidding. It's because I was too busy being an Ariana Grande stan instead. But I had many friends growing up who loved One Direction, and so I know a bit about their fandom's culture during its peak, including all of the wacky and deranged fan fiction written about the band. However, I never really read much of it. But that changes today. I re-downloaded Wattpad and I'm going to be reading and chatting to you all about a couple of One Direction fanfictions from way back in the day, just to see what I was missing out on as a teen, you know? I'm curious. One Direction, I found, has hundreds and thousands of fanfictions written about them, and there were so many tropes to choose from for this video. You have the bad boy ex-nerdy girl, falling in love with your bully, being adopted by One Direction, even being sold to them, like I was demonstrating in the intro there. And that was a close contender to dig into, I will admit. I almost went with that one, but Kidnapping was really just calling to me at the moment. I don't know. That is such a crazy sentence to say out loud. Being kidnapped by One Direction. Some classic 2012 Wattpad literature that I'm so excited and nervous to dive into for the very first time. Just a note before we begin, these fanfictions include so many problematic tropes and romanticizing toxic relationship messiness in general. This video isn't to hate or to bash on anyone who wrote One Direction fanfictions or these authors in particular. I know that many of these fanfictions were written years ago by preteens and teenagers. The 2 that I'm discussing today were written between 2012 and 2013. Enough time has passed where we, I feel, can look back on these kinds of stories and realize how cringy and wrong they were in a lot of ways. And regardless of the issues, I still think it's worth going back and looking at some of the writing because it was such a moment for so many of us growing up and for internet culture in general. And reading these, at least for me, were equal parts silly and nostalgic, even though I wasn't a huge One Direction fan personally. Obviously, we all know now that healthy relationships aren't meant to be all kidnappings and cheatings and drama, I hope. The first story I read was about a girl named Taylor. Her best friend Peyton is a huge One Direction fan, and she drags Taylor along with her to essentially camp out of the hotel the band is staying in for their show in town. The first chapter literally reads like a fever dream. It's so confusing and convoluted. This whole story does really. Like, the writing is so confusing because there's so many typos and just mispunctuations. Like, I genuinely didn't know what was going on at times. But Taylor is running away from her friend because she doesn't want to go, since she isn't a fan of the band personally. And she ends up locking herself in a bathroom closet, and then Peyton threatens to scream. So Taylor's like, okay, fine, I'll go. It was very odd. And of course, Taylor has an imaginary friend named Bob because this was written in 2012 and that was quirky back then. I wonder if Bob has a mustache tattoo. Taylor wanders off from the hotel and runs into One Direction, of course, conveniently. A crowd of fans start heading their way, and this is when the kidnapping happens. I say kidnapping in quotes because like they are technically taking her against her will, but it's not really like a kidnapping in the traditional sense. Taylor says, quote, "I just stood there shocked until a hand goes around my waist and throws me over their shoulder. Oh my god, I'm being kidnapped." "You're not being kidnapped," Harry said while throwing me into a van. "Then what do you call this?" "Well, I call it epically saving a girl from getting trampled." Yes. So epic. Also, instead of cursing, Taylor says these like strange phrases like "holy Spider-Man" or "what in the cupcakes." It's just such a reminder to me that this is like a 2012 time capsule. Like I can't. Those parts were like the cringiest for me to read personally. Taylor doesn't seem to be that alarmed by the situation, i.e. being snatched up by 5 random guys. She is surprisingly chill. And maybe that's because she's a cool, quirky girl who doesn't even listen to One Direction's music, so she just doesn't even care that she's being taken against her will by then. She asked to be taken back home like once near the beginning of the story, and Louis's like, "No, sorry, we can't. This would look really bad for us, so guess you just have to stay and live here with us forever because that's gonna make you look better." You would think that they would consider the PR ramifications before taking a literal child off the street and shoving her into a van. But anyways, they take her to their apartment instead because apparently they have an apartment here even though they're just visiting for a show to perform. And also, they never perform a single show in the story. I just am realizing that now going back. So like really, like why were they there? What were they doing? Clearly they weren't doing their jobs. And still, like Taylor doesn't really care that much that they're just taking her wherever they end up going. He's like, "Oh, you guys are so annoying, whatever," and then just tags along anyways. Also, she is still talking to her imaginary friend Bob, like basically throughout the entire 2/3 of this story. She's talking to him like he is a real person too, and I'm genuinely concerned that she has voices in her head. Like something does not seem quite right up there. And apparently she's not a child. She's actually 18 years old, which in my opinion that is too old to be playing pranks on One Direction with your Bob. Because that's what she's doing right now. She's hiding in cabinets and underneath beds and in closets, trying to scare them all like some little like demonic gremlin child or something. It's very creepy. Maybe her plan was like to just creep them out enough to where they'd be like, "I don't even want to keep you around anyways. Like I regret kidnapping you," and then they'll just free her. But that doesn't work out in her favor. They all seem like very amused by pranks. Was that a Wattpad fanfiction trope back in the day that I just didn't realize, like playing pranks on one another as a way to like bond and flirt? I don't know, you'll have to let me know. Eventually Harry is like, "Well, what are we gonna do with her?" Which is a valid question, and they end up just throwing her into the pool because sure, why not? They seem to enjoy picking her up and tossing her around places like she isn't a human being, which I find very uncomfortable and alarming. Also, what if she didn't know how to swim? What if she drowned? Then what, Harry? Like, now you're not only liable for a kidnapping, you're liable for a death. At this point, Taylor has been gone for about 24 hours, and is nobody looking for her? Because it's never mentioned that anyone's looking for her. Did Peyton not notice that she was missing? And where are her parents in all of this? Is there a police search? I have a lot of questions, most of which will not get answered. And I'm getting the sense that this story is not too concerned with logistics, so a couple of these questions do get addressed in the next chapter. However, Taylor sees her friend Peyton on the news crying because she's missing. So she calls Peyton up, and instead of asking for help, she tells Peyton not to worry. She's just on a little vacation for a couple of weeks and everything's fine. Thinking about this from her friend's perspective, like that must be so traumatic to like go somewhere with your friend and then turn around and she's gone, and she's been gone for over 24 hours and you have no idea what happened to her and you were the last person with her. Like, that is terrifying. And then for Taylor to just so nonchalantly call her up on the phone and be like, I'm just chilling, like, don't worry about me, and then like hang up and give her no other details. Like, this is your best friend. This is not best friend behavior. What? Also, so like Taylor's had her phone this entire time and she's just never reached out to Peyton or for her parents. And now all of a sudden she has no interest in going back home, even though a couple pages ago she was asking to be going back home. And her reasoning for all of this is so that way that One Direction doesn't get in trouble. That's why she doesn't give Peyton any more details, and that's why she like wants to stay here now. She doesn't want them to get in trouble. They kidnapped you, girl. Wake up. Kidnapped again, like in kind of a loose sense. They did take her, but they aren't necessarily forcing her to stay there. Like, they're not locking her in anywhere. She can walk out at any time and they're like not really gonna stop her. She's just there because she has nothing else better to do, I guess. Maybe Bob is telling her to stay. Maybe like it's the voices in her head. I don't know. And I'm kind of afraid to ask at this point. One of the band members tells Taylor that he had his girlfriend set up a room for her to sleep in. And so now we're getting other people outside the band involved and they're just okay with this. Like, your girlfriend, your romantic partner is okay with you stealing an 18-year-old girl off of the street and housing her in your apartment seemingly indefinitely. Is this a normal thing for them to be doing? Is Taylor not the first one? Because why is the girlfriend so nonchalant about this? Genuinely what is going on here? Like, I don't understand why this is so normal. Why is snatching people off the street a normal thing in this story? I get suspension of disbelief, but this seems to be taking it too far. So far that I'm getting emotional and I'm doing Italian hands about it. Upon learning this information about having a room to stay now, Taylor hugs each of the guys and she thanks them. She says she is so happy to have met them. She's happy that she's here right now. How does someone develop Stockholm Syndrome in less than a day? Please let me know. Okay. It's the next morning now. I'm like I'm roughly sure. Time seems to be an illusion in this story, so take this with a grain of salt. But Taylor overhears Niall telling the other bandmates that he has fallen in love with her, because that makes so much sense, to fall in love with the girl that you kidnapped a day ago. Everything in this story makes so much sense, and I am not confused or scared at all. It's fine. Somehow in this universe, Liam is the most sensible One Direction member here because he asks, how can you fall in love with her? We kidnapped her, for crying out loud, Liam said in a hushed tone. Also, all they've been doing is having 30-second conversations max and then going to watch random superhero movies. Do these people forget that they are One Direction, the biggest boy band at the time? Stop watching superhero films with the girl that you kidnapped and go into the studio. Go do your job. Taylor goes to get a shower and she starts singing in the shower, and I bet you can see where this is going. The boys hear her and record her voice, and they want to send it to, trigger warning, Simon Cowell, because they think she sounds so amazingly impossibly good. Her bathroom, by the way, is attached to her bedroom, which is on the second floor. So there's no way they would have been able to hear her all the way down in the living room, especially with the TV playing. So that means that they must have sneakily followed her up there for God knows whatever reason and just stood inside her room outside the bathroom door listening to her shower. They were listening to her shower and they happened to catch her singing. That is so creepy and gross and weird, and this story makes me laugh, but it also makes me so deeply uncomfortable. And then, like that never happened, they just go to the beach. Again, go do your job. Go to work. Hello? Also, why would you want to go to a public place and bring the girl you kidnapped with you? That just doesn't make any sense at all, especially because you said you weren't going to let her go because you didn't want people finding out about any of this. Obviously, people are going to see you there with her, and that's exactly what happens. They get swarmed by paparazzi and they have to run off somewhere. This brings up another series of questions for me, like, do they have security? Where is their security team? They're just out in the open gallivanting around, and then they act so surprised when people spot them, like they aren't literally the biggest boy band in the world. Trigger warning, Simon Cowell ends up calling them and tells Taylor to come to the studio tomorrow, and he's gonna get her a record deal because apparently that is how it works in this universe. All you have to do to become a recording artist is to get kidnapped by some boy band and let them listen to you sing one verse of a Cher Lloyd song in the shower. At this point, Niall confesses his love to Taylor, and so I guess they're dating. I don't know if I would consider this dating, considering the context behind this love confession in their relationship. After he admits his feelings for her though, she thinks to herself, wow, this adorable leprechaun just admitted that he likes me. Adorable leprechaun. I know that he's Irish, but can we please not do this? Leave the leprechauns out of this, please. What did leprechauns ever do to you? I did Google Niall's age in 2012 because I was curious about the age gap situation potentially, and he was 19 then, so at least it's not weird in that way. It's only weird in the way that he like stole her against her will. Taylor calls Peyton again for the second time, and she tells her the truth about where she actually is. Peyton is not at all concerned, which was not surprising to me at this point because nobody seems concerned. She is ecstatic actually that her friend has happened to fall in love with one of her kidnappers. I mean, one of the members of her favorite band. And they're still pranking each other this entire time. Like middle school type of pranks. Shaving cream and baby powder and hair dryers and doodling with markers on people's faces while they're sleeping. They wake her up in the morning one day by standing around her bed and singing a song to her. Like, that is not the most cultish and terrifying thing to see first thing in the morning. You just open your eyes to 5 grown men looming over your bed chanting the good morning song. I'm gonna have nightmares about this, and I didn't even experience it directly. Like, that is crazy. They all go to the studio this day, and there's a crowd of fans outside. They know who Taylor is now, of course, from the paparazzi photos from the beach. Some of them even made signs for Taylor and asked for her autograph. I feel like this is one of the most unrealistic parts of the entire story. One Direction fans, especially in like 2012 to 2014, would not be welcoming someone like Taylor in with open arms. Like, am I crazy for thinking that? They would like tear her apart and eat her alive for being associated with one of the boys. Like, I saw how fans would treat their real life girlfriends on Twitter, like, let alone Taylor actually like is dating one of them. You know what I mean? The crowd literally cheers when she and Niall kiss in front of them. That would never in a million years happen. Also, I'm just realizing now, even with this much publicity, her parents have never once called her to check in on her. She's only ever spoken to Peyton. Do her parents just not care that their daughter went missing for days and ended up in the home of these 5 men? They haven't notified the authorities? I'm so... Simon has her sing one song in the booth. Just one. And then basically he's like, well, that's a wrap. Good job. I'll have an album and a successful music career coming your way ASAP. I don't know what kind of connection Simon has, but this all seems to be happening pretty quick. One Direction has an interview scheduled later that day, so at least finally they're like doing their job. They all ride over there, except it's actually not really an interview about them. The first question the interview asks is about their relationship statuses, and Niall goes, quote, "Ladies and gentlemen, I have a girlfriend and she's right here." And then the rest of the interview is Taylor talking not about how they kidnapped her, but about how she's filming her pranks on them and she's gonna post them onto YouTube. So in the span of like 48 hours or so, she's become Niall Horan's girlfriend. gotten a record deal and is also on her path of being an influencer. A girl boss before the girl bosses even existed, if I do say so. At this point, I was only like a third of the way through the story and my head was already hurting. So I did skip to like the last few ending chapters just to see what happens. And apparently something did happen with Niall, at least, because now Taylor is dating Harry. There's a fangirl who comes up to Taylor and calls her a bunch of names and says she doesn't deserve to be with Harry because she's just passing around all the guys, essentially. And like I mentioned, I don't have a ton of context for this because I was just skipping around at this point, other than apparently Niall did cheat on her in one of the chapters I browsed over, but I found this interaction to be kind of amusing in a way I don't think the author intended it to be. The girl walks up to Taylor and says, "I just wanted to let you know that you're a," and then just walks away. I thought this was hilarious, personally. Other people in the Wattpad comments seemed to take it very, very personally, though. Don't let them see you cry, queen. Put on a stone face and act like they didn't get to you. When your enemies see you cry, they take this as a weakness, and they keep that weakness in their minds. Now let me tell you this, though. For one, she did not just say that. There are two options right then and there. Number one, beat the life out of the bitch. And number two, drag the bitch by the hair and then beat the life out of the bitch. How is the gonna call you a when she came out here in those, I don't even think I can call them clothes. So let's say things. Number one, she's just pissed because you get to smash some super famous hot boys and she doesn't. Number two, the bitch can calm her ass down because if you're a who made them decide to kidnap you and get you a record deal with the one and only Simon Cowell, then A, in my opinion, it's good to be a slut then. So the bitch just needs to move, get whatever crawled up her ass and died out the way because she's just mad that while you get to lie in a flat with the one, the only 1D, she's at home watching them on YouTube and Googling them. So bye boo, somebody hold my phone cause I for one am about to be. So she needs to look up to God. Well, whatever God she worships, cause my God ain't made that piece of trash and we both know it. Let me ask the one question. If you hate me so much, then why the f is you at my hotel with the others to get an autograph? Oh, you don't know? Somebody hold me back before I end up in jail and it ends up dead. Deceased. Gone. Forever. Thank you. Just don't let them see you cry. Hold the tears back and beat some ass today. If you show any signs that you feel sad, they'll use that against you for as long as possible until it cannot be used anymore. So Pooh, don't show any emotion to that. To be honest, I'm pretty sure she's just sad the boys don't like. I could go on for hours, but I won't. Now girl, just put your stuff down, crack your knuckles, and beat some ass. That's crazy. Someone wrote that and posted it on the internet. That's your digital footprint. But anyways, this interaction really upsets Taylor. She wonders if One Direction is, quote, tearing her life apart. Perhaps instead of one direction, she feels pulled in multiple directions. I had to make a joke at some point, okay? I'm sorry. And then in the next chapter, Taylor sees a photo of Harry kissing another girl. So he's also cheating on her. This is so messy, and now she wants to quit her entire music career over this. But then they just make up in like less than a page because Harry's like, we should start over, and Taylor just is like, okay, sure. That's how you know like an 12-year-old wrote this, because they just have no concept of like how conversations and conflict work in relationship. But she does finally end up going back home to take a much needed break from her 5 to 10 business days of fame. Her mom is upset with her for not calling, but why didn't you call her? She was the one that was kidnapped. And then instead of apologizing for never reaching out to her parents, Taylor throws a fit and runs away to Peyton's house. But Peyton's upset with her too for similar reasons. Aside from those 2 phone calls I mentioned, Taylor hasn't reached out to her best friend at all. So instead of resolving literally anything, She just runs away from her problems. She gets a ticket and flies back to London and reunites with One Direction, forgiving everyone, including Niall and Harry. So I guess the moral of this story is ignore your loved ones when they're concerned for you and fall in love with your kidnapper if they seem chill and conventionally attractive. I have to say, my favorite part of Wattpad is scrolling through all the comments people leave. They're so funny. They really elevated my reading experience of the story. So here are some of the highlights from this one before we move on. This next story is about a 17-year-old girl named Harmony. Within the first couple of paragraphs of the story, Harmony has seen One Direction being threatened in an alleyway by some guy. She ran to rescue them and then she got stabbed in the stomach. Like, why are we moving so fast? This was literally like the second paragraph in. They rush her over to the hospital to get help, and also for some reason Louis feels the need to pretend to be her legal guardian because he's worried she might tell someone what happened. I'm not really sure how pretending to be her parent will prevent her from telling people that she got stabbed. Also, it's kind of obvious that she got stabbed. That's why she's in the hospital. He also gives her a fake name when he's filling out forms. Like, how is he even getting away with any of this? Do they not cross-reference or check IDs? What hospital is this? I need names so I make sure that I never end up there. Also, he's Louis from One Direction. People know who he is. I don't know what they were doing in that alleyway, but surely this is just creating an even bigger issue by lying and pretending to be related to someone who is currently unconscious and in a vulnerable state. And of course, the fake name that they chose for her is Darcy because it's 2012 in a One Direction fanfiction. Does anybody know why everyone was obsessed with the name Darcy? Please, because I would love to know personally. They keep up this act, by the way, for like 2 weeks straight until Harmony is well enough to leave the hospital. And I just don't understand how no one found out about this. And also, what is with these stories and absent parents? If I had a child that went missing for weeks, I would definitely be looking and getting the authorities involved. And the police surely would like talk to local hospitals about accepting any patients that fit the kid's description. Again, like, I'm not a doctor or an authority, but I feel like that's how it works, right? Am I crazy? I feel like I've watched enough Law and Order to know. They wheel her out and take her home with them all the way to London from America. They flew on a plane with her while she was drugged on pain meds. Like, where is her passport? I just am not understanding why they thought that this was the most optimal solution in this scenario. And that hospital is about to get sued so badly once somebody realizes that they just let a teenage girl doped up on pain meds go with 5 random strangers. Harmony wakes up eventually and she is so confused, rightfully so. She barely remembers anything. She's locked in a room, so she climbs out the window, stitches and all, and goes to a shop, and she leaves Maya this voicemail. Maya, I think I was kidnapped. I'm in Britain. I don't know how else for you to reach me, so I guess call me back here. Please find me. Then she hands the phone back to the shopkeeper, who is not at all concerned or perturbed about what Harmony just said. Like, Harmony is shouting that she's been kidnapped and she doesn't know where she is, and it is hard for her to walk properly because she's in pain from her healing wound, and the shop owner's just like, okay, see you later, have a nice day. Like, why are the adults in these stories so dense and so unhelpful? Why? This story also reads so much more ominous than the last one did. I'll read you a little excerpt here. I slowly turned around and saw 5 boys coming toward me. They seemed familiar. I slowly got up and backed away. The curly-haired one smirked and sped up. I turned and sprinted about 30 meters before I collapsed from the pain in my stomach. My vision became cloudy and everything went black. If I read that to you out of context, would you guess that this is a One Direction fanfiction? Because I would not. It is so scary and so creepy. This is genuinely a frightening situation. This girl was stabbed, unconscious for multiple weeks, and shipped off on a plane to another country with 5 men that she does not know. Then there's another quote right after that says, "We locked all the windows and all the doors that led outside." This is literally a horror story. I can't. Harmony is demanding to be taken back home, but the guys say that she's seen too much, even though she doesn't remember what really happened and she doesn't even recognize them as One Direction. Later on, Niall catches Harmony singing. Sound familiar? And obviously she has the most beautiful voice he's ever heard. Everyone seems to be falling for Niall first in these stories. Hopefully he doesn't cheat on her like the last girl. And guess what song she's singing? Guess. I bet you never in a million years would have guessed Promiscuous Girl by Nelly Furtado. Is that even a song you like sing? Like, if she has this amazing voice, I would have expected her to be singing a song that reflected that and that proved that she has this amazing voice. I just feel like Promiscuous Girl is such an odd choice. I don't know. Okay, so very quickly, all of the guys are kind of attracted to her, which is weird because she's a teenager and they're all in their 20s, I'm pretty sure. Niall literally sleeps in bed with her the night that they take her back from the park, and Zayn and Louis are very jealous about this. Niall literally sleeps in bed with her the night that they take her back from the park, and Zayn and Louis are really jealous about this. Zayn literally says, quote, "I think it's cute that she doesn't know much. I think I have a crush on her." Being attracted to her lack of recollection of you kidnapping her and fleeing to another country is very creepy, very weirdo vibes. Very odd, but this was probably written by a child at the time, so I don't think they understood necessarily what they were doing with this sort of dynamic and with the kidnapping in general, so I'm not gonna go too hard on them. I guess Harmony's plan is to get Niall and Zayn and the others to fall for her so she'll gain their trust and then take advantage of that to escape. But now she's like actually falling for them, even though it's been literally a day and they've had maybe one coherent interaction so far. The shopkeeper from earlier tracks Harmony down and delivers a response from her friend Maya. "Thank goodness you're alive. I promise we'll find you. If I don't hear back from you in 5 days, I'm gonna assume that you're dead." And then the shopkeeper lady has the audacity to ask Harmony if she's been kidnapped in front of her kidnappers. So obviously the boys step in and they're like, "No, of course not. Like, we're all good here." And then the woman believes them and then she just leaves, even though she heard both Harmony and Maya's messages, which were equally concerning. Then we find out that even though Harmony and Niall have been canoodling, let's say, he does have a girlfriend, and it's none other than Demi Lovato. I don't think they dated in real life, but I could be remembering wrong. I don't know, someone let me know. But he must not love her that much because he says, "I must admit, I ditch her in an instant for Harmony and I don't even know much about her." That's sort of like the crux of this entire story, is just madly falling in love with people even though you know nothing about them and it's been like 12 hours. This obviously goes without saying, but it's so toxic. This story might be even more toxic than the first one that I read. Only time will tell. Harmony keeps asking when they're gonna take her home, and they never are. Like, let's be real, they have no plans, and they keep getting annoyed with her for asking this question. Like, she's the one that's inconveniencing them. They're going on tour soon, and they plan to take her with them. I don't know exactly how that's gonna work when she's still quite vocal about the fact that they took her and she wants to go home, but I guess we will see. There is a brief flashback around this time to some people that Harmony knows from back home, and the town has basically presumed her dead, which is so sad. What are they gonna think when they see her on stage on national television too, like with One Direction in a few weeks? And suddenly Harmony is auditioning in front of, trigger warning, Simon Cowell. He is demanding that she goes on the X Factor instead of going on tour with the band. Imagine you grieve your daughter, your best friend, your classmate, etc. You think she's dead, she just disappeared one day. No idea where her body ended up. Then one day you turn on the TV and you see her singing like Adele songs on stage in front of Simon and other judges. I would be so confused and shocked, and honestly me traumatized. The guys don't want this to happen, so Simon threatens to turn them into the police if they don't comply. I guess he only cares about them kidnapping teenage girls if it directly impacts the ratings on his television show. So off to the X Factor Harmony goes. Also, just as an aside, I feel like this whole X Factor thing, like, is this not X Factor nepotism? Simon has already heard her perform. He already knows that she's good at singing. She's also associated with One Direction, who began on the X Factor. What is the point in making her audition if she's probably just going to win regardless? You know what? I feel like X Factor nepotism is the least of my worries in the story. So Zayn tries to offer Harmony his version of a date, which is just getting drunk and watching movies together. And Harmony declines. She's more in denial at the moment, as we can tell, even though he is taken by Demi Lovato still. She and Zayn still hang out, and it's super awkward and uncomfortable because he just gets drunk anyways and keeps pestering her about how much he knows that she wants him. Super icky stuff. And eventually he does leave though before it escalates any further, so that's good at least. At the next X Factor round, Harmony's parents and Maya and her school crush Derek all show up, and they got to her so quickly because her mom is conveniently friends with one of the show's producers. Whatever. Everyone seems really chill about this, even though they literally thought she was dead. They're just hanging out and watching the rest of the auditions together in the audience like this is some sort of treat or like family vacation or something. It's really weird. Like, nobody addresses the fact that she's been missing and presumed dead for weeks, and literally none of them address it again. Now Harmony is introducing Derek and Maya to One Direction as if this is all normal and they didn't watch her get stabbed and kidnapped a few weeks ago. She invites Derek to stay over and not Maya, even though Maya is a fan of the band, and that is because she also has a crush on Derek at the same time that she has a crush on Niall. Very messy stuff. Very messy stuff. So she's sleeping with Niall, she's kissing Derek, she's also like sort of interested in Zayn. It's like very murky territory there, but there are like some kind of feelings. So Miss Girl is keeping her options open. We'll say that. Niall is getting jealous of Derek, and he starts an argument with Harmony about it, even though he has a girlfriend. I cannot reiterate this enough. This entire story, he has a girlfriend. Poot Lovato, like, are you forgetting, Niall? You have someone already. Finally, over halfway through this entire story, Harmony says the only thing that makes sense in this entire story, which is, quote, "You kidnapped me. Why would I want to date you? If anything, I'm genuinely afraid of you. All of you. I flinch when you touch me." And you know what? She says all of this, and yet 2 chapters ago she was hugging Niall and sleeping in the same bed with him. So like, I don't know. What is the truth here? At least in this story, I appreciate that Harmony has some sort of sense of internal conflict about the kidnapping and how it makes her feel. Taylor in the last story didn't seem to care all that much. She actually had more conflict with her family than with the guys. Almost a month out from when the story began, Louis finally shows some signs of remorse and regret for what happened with Harmony. He says, quote, "I finally realized how traumatic this has been for Harmony when I heard her say that. I stepped out to comfort her, but she ran. I looked at the guys and could see guilt in their eyes. How could everything get so out of hand?" We still have not addressed why they were even in that alleyway in the first place. Who was the other guy with the knife? What is his relationship to One Direction? Like, this was the inciting incident, and it was like not mentioned again at all. Spoiler. This incident that is causing all of this conflict is just mentioned once briefly in the first few paragraphs and then never touched again. And it's causing so many issues for the characters and also just like in terms of the story in general. I'm getting the sense that Harmony doesn't know that Niall has a girlfriend because she says that she notices him flirting with Demi a lot and she gets jealous about it, but that's all. Like, she doesn't acknowledge their relationship. So maybe somehow she doesn't realize they're together. I don't know. Like, Demi is also in this universe a judge on the X Factor, like literally judging Harmony on stage. Niall's there, she is there, Demi's there. Like, surely you would be picking up on some vibes, but she seems very oblivious to that. And also apparently Zayn has a girlfriend too, even though he was also flirting with Harmony and being weird and trying to hook up. So these boys are just so messy. They're so messy. I'm not sure why we are making the love interests of the story the two guys in the band that are already in relationships. There's literally 3 other guys to choose from that aren't in relationships in the story, and yet Harmony keeps going for the ones that are in relationships. Maybe it's less her going for them and them coming to her first, but regardless of who is pursuing who, this is certainly a choice made by the author. Niall apologizes for kidnapping Harmony and she does forgive him, which is just so exhausting. It's so exhausting. I'm exhausted by this story and we're only like halfway through. On Christmas, Harmony catches Derek making out with another one of the X Factor contestants. Uh-oh, drama. So now she's back with Niall, like officially, I guess. I don't know, you call it officially if like he's already official with someone else. Regardless, we'll see how long it lasts, who knows. They're love bombing each other so hard right now, talking about how they can't live without the other, that they need each other like they need air, and that they love each other so much. Like, girl, that's literally one of your kidnappers. What do you mean? Harmony did not end up winning X Factor. She's getting the One Direction treatment, which makes sense. This is a One Direction fanfiction. So, and by that I mean she is being put in a group with some of the other contestants and she's being offered a similar deal that One Direction was. And then as she's celebrating this group coming together in this deal, she sees Niall kissing the very same girl that Derek was kissing earlier. So now Harmony is mad at everyone, even though it's pretty clear that this girl is putting Derek and Niall in incriminating scenarios around Harmony on purpose to mess with her. Make no mistake, I'm not sympathizing with Niall at all in this story. Regardless of this incident, I'm pretty sure he is, again, still with Demi. At least the author has not said anything about them breaking up, and they never do. Niall tries to convince Harmony that the girl was coming on to him, not the other way around, but she's not hearing any of it. So Louis comes up with a brilliant idea to help his friend get Harmony back. They're gonna re-traumatize her by kidnapping her again. That's their brilliant idea. This time by smuggling her and drugging her soup. This girl cannot have anything. She can't even eat her chicken and rice in peace. Like, come on. They aren't gonna let her out of their room that they locked her in until she agrees to get back with Niall, and all of them are in on it. Every single one of them. Nobody sees a problem with this except for me, apparently, and I feel like I am reading a Colleen Hoover book at this point. Like, the plot is insane and the way it romanticizes things is insane. The whole time she's unconscious, locked in this room, Niall is scrolling through Twitter all woe is me because he just has so many fangirls who are in love with him. It's just so hard to be Niall Horan in this story, I guess. You have a woman locked in your basement, and now 3 chapters before the story ends, we learn that the girl kissing Derek and Niall is part of a family of mob bosses, because that needed to be added in at the last minute for some reason. She threatens to kill Derek's family if he won't be her boyfriend. For some unknown reason, I guess it's probably jealousy toward Harmony, but this feels a little extreme, does it not? This information came out of nowhere, by the way, and gets absolutely no resolution. It was just a couple of sentences thrown into the end of one of the chapters, but I thought I would mention it just because of the sheer absurdity. Eventually, Harmony finds a way to break one of the windows and jump out of it, running to the nearest diner to hide for safety. And at least the lady working at this diner is actually helpful and covers for Harmony, unlike the other woman earlier on, the shopkeeper lady. She's a real one for that. Harmony buys a plane ticket to LA using one of Niall's credit cards, which he totally literally cannot use to track her at all. That's exactly what he does. So she goes to an event there and hits it off with a member of another boy band, Emblem 3. I don't know, I've never heard of them personally, but at least this guy is her age and he isn't trying to kidnap her yet. One Direction, of course, is off to Hollywood to harass Harmony yet again. They just cannot let this go for some reason. Niall pounds on her hotel room door until she lets him in, apologizes again, and she just sighs and she says that she loves him. That's it. That's the end of the story, folks. She ends up with Niall anyways, because even though she went through so much to escape him, she gives him no pushback whatsoever. She's just tired. He wore her down at this point, I think, and that's all it is. The few ending lines literally say, "She reluctantly let me in, not saying a word. She sat on the bed and I said, just hear me out. I would never ever cheat on you on purpose." Okay, side note, how do you cheat on someone not on purpose? "I am so sorry for what happened and I hope you can forgive me. I love you." She sighed and looked up at me before saying, "Niall, I love you too." We hugged and made up. It was hard for her though. All of this happened just because she was kidnapped by One Direction. That is something that changes your life. Well, my life has certainly changed, that's for sure. So yeah, no mentions of Demi at all, and absolutely no circling back around to why One Direction was even in an alleyway without security and who that one guy with a knife was, even though that was the inciting incident for Harmony's kidnapping, like I mentioned earlier. And again, here are some of my favorite comments left by other readers for this story. So, reading these stories got me wondering why we were so interested in writing about kidnappings and being kidnapped at young ages especially. I did a little bit of research. And by a little bit of research, I mean like I read one article and now we're going to talk about it. And while I couldn't find anything related to fan fiction in particular, I did find this article from Bustle from a couple years ago about portraying kidnapping in the media in general. The writer interviews professor of psychology at Northwest Missouri State University, Chase Ogwin. He explains that our fascination with such dark and complex storylines in TV and film are complicated, of course, as all things are, complicated and nuanced. It is not necessarily that we want to see other people suffering. Instead, people often, quote, position themselves with the victim and view the story vicariously through them. That is definitely the case with these One Direction kidnapping fanfictions, in my opinion, because the story is often mostly or entirely written through the kidnapped protagonist's perspective, and this protagonist is described and written in a way that will be intentionally relatable to the readers. A teenage girl who often feels out of place or different in some way from her peers, because that's also relatable usually to the person who's writing these fan fictions as well. To add on to this, I think the kidnapping trope might also be popular among teenage audiences in particular, back then and even now probably to an extent, because that's usually an awkward time in your life when you're growing up and you begin to want some level of autonomy and control over yourself, and yet you still are a child and dependent on your family. You still have to go to school and participate in housework, and you don't have a lot of money. You might not even have a car yet. This, coupled with all of the emotional and hormonal changes you go through from ages like 12 to 17, can make you feel very trapped, and that definitely is frustrating. Perhaps at some level, readers in 2012 related to Taylor and Harmony in ways that they didn't even realize. And at least what is holding you hostage in these fictional stories is your favorite boyfriend, as messy and as toxic as they are, and not some kind of real life authority or social constraint that you have no control over. There is a way they can exercise a bit more autonomy here, as both writers and readers of these genres and tropes of fan fiction. Maybe it's a little empowering, I don't know, at the expense of being also extremely problematic. I don't know, is that a stretch? Let me know what you think. I think an argument could definitely be made. This was definitely a wild ride that I am glad we got to endure together. Will I ever read One Direction fanfiction again? Probably not. Unless you guys want me to look at like another trope maybe, or maybe there's other fandoms you know of, past, present, that you'd like me to do a little deep dive into, let me know. I am excited for you all to comment your thoughts and for me to read through them though. I hope this video reaches some One Direction fans so that I can hear some more first-hand experiences and opinions on all of this. I'd really appreciate it if you liked and subscribed if you enjoyed this video. I do lots of various forms of writing analysis and media deep dives over here. I've got my baking book club series where I chef up a little dessert while I discuss whatever novel I'm reading at the moment. I think we're currently working through the Heated Rivalry series by the time this is up, so stick around for that. Speaking of Heated Rivalry though, if you enjoy when I talk about fanfiction, I do also have a Heated Rivalry fanfiction video, and I also have one up that has Dan and Phil fanfiction entangled with the topic of online surveillance, so lots to choose from over there. But I think that's all that I have to say for now, so I will talk to you all soon. Goodbye.